he said at the dinner table. "I only have one home," and everyone around nodded in agreement. I had just seen the electricity bill from the other place he called home, hidden quietly away. "My name is Emily Carter, and I work as an auditor in Chicago, trained to trust numbers." They always said my father was a good man, stable, responsible, and someone who never made mistakes. I sat there watching him cut his steak, realizing I had never truly belonged at that table. That night, my mom asked me to help pay the electricity bill using his online utility account. I logged in and saw 2 addresses listed. One was our house, the other labeled simply as home. I stared at that word for 10 seconds straight, unable to breathe, as everything quietly shifted inside. I didn't say a word, just took a screenshot, logged out, and opened my map application immediately. The second address led to a downtown condo, high-rise floor 2 ceiling windows, something out of advertisements. Actually, that moment I didn't feel anger, just one cold, precise question forming clearly in my mind. If that place was home, then what exactly were we supposed to be to him all along? That night, I didn't return home. I took a cab directly to that building downtown instead. The lobby had a security desk, warm lighting, the kind of atmosphere that actually felt like home. I stood quietly in the corner like a stranger, waiting, observing, trying to understand what I was seeing. At 7, a woman and a young boy walked in together, smiling like this was their normal life. 20 minutes later, my father arrived carrying a cake from Whole Foods, claiming he had a client dinner. I replied with a simple, "Okay," standing in the cold wind, but feeling clearer than ever before. That was when I finally understood it wasn't that he had 2 homes. I just wasn't in one. The next day, I began digging through accounts, starting with his Chase records and every clean transfer. Everything was precise. Almost 2 perfect $2,000 monthly. Labeled household, but not for us. Scrolling further, I saw down payments, mortgage records, tuition fees, an entire life built without me. That was the first time I truly understood that numbers never lie, but people absolutely do. On the 3rd day, I found her name Helen Miller, my mother's former colleague who replaced her position. She hadn't just taken her job, she had taken everything that used to belong to my mother. I looked at old photos of my mom, smiling in a white blouse, confident, once the best. Then slowly, she became someone confined to the kitchen while another woman lived inside that home. I didn't cry. I just felt cold. And then I made a decision without hesitation. I wouldn't ask. I wouldn't argue why. Would calculate everything carefully, like I was trained to do. On the 4th day, I accessed his email and found a drafted divorce agreement already prepared. Planned to leave and take the company. He would leave the house to my mom, like some calculated act of generosity after betrayal. In that moment, I realized if I did nothing, she would be completely erased from her own life. By the 5th day, I had everything ready: lawyer, evidence, timeline, every detail structured with precision. I didn't tell my mother. She was still in the kitchen, washing dishes. Just like always, she had no idea. She had already been replaced in a life she thought still belonged to her. On the 10th day, I showed her everything. She read each page carefully without shedding a single tear. She only asked one question: "How long?" I answered quietly, 20 years. And she nodded slowly. Then she said, "Then it's over." And in that moment, something inside her finally woke up. On the 15th day, during a birthday dinner at a steakhouse, everyone important was present. Relatives, business partners, friends. He stood in the center, announcing a peaceful divorce with confidence. He said he would take care of her. And people nodded, calling him a good man. They looked at me like I was the problem, like I was about to ruin something unnecessarily. No one asked for the truth, so I stood up and connected my laptop to the screen. I opened an Excel file, $1.2 million. Every transaction laid out across 20 silent years. The room went quiet, the air shifted, and suddenly they stopped looking at me and stared at him. He began denying everything, raising his voice, saying, "That's my money." But I didn't stop. I asked him calmly, "Then what about these?" And for the first time, he had no answer. I revealed the court order next to set freeze. His hands started shaking as control slipped away. But I wasn't finished yet. I placed the final document on the screen, a DNA report. The child wasn't his. The room exploded into noise, shock, whispers, phones being raised instantly. He stood there hollow, like something had been pulled out of him, aging 10 years instantly. I looked at him and said, "You thought you controlled everything, but you were being used." His partners stepped back. No one stood beside him anymore. In that moment, he truly lost everything. My mother stood up, signed the papers, and looked at him, saying, "You don't deserve me." We walked out without looking back. No one stopped us. No one tried to say anything. 3 months later, the ruling came. She regained most assets, the company, the house, and herself. He lost control of the company, his partnerships collapsed, and he ended up alone in a rental. Later, he texted me. I made a mistake, but I never responded to that message. I was on the balcony watering plants, sunlight warm while my mother laughed softly inside. That was when I finally understood this wasn't revenge. It was simply correcting what was always wrong. They said I destroyed a family, but I knew the truth long before they ever did. That family stopped existing the moment he said, I only have one home, and meant it.